Windham High School for over a decade, and a citizen who has lived in Willimantic for over 16 years. And I'm here tonight to condemn this reform agenda as utterly fraudulent and cynical. The purported aim of this legislative initiative is to redress the gross inequity of opportunity afforded the most vulnerable of our state's residents, its children who live in poverty, the majority of whom grow up, as I did, in our cities. It should be uncontroversial that the hardships created by material privation evidence the strongest statistical predictor of a young person's chance for academic success. This poverty can be attributed to many causes, and though we may argue the precise impact of each of these, I hope that we would all completely exempt from blame those who as children bear its harshest effect. Before the education mandarins, most of whom are far removed from classrooms, convict me of heresy, of denying the naive orthodoxy that poverty isn't destiny, let me acknowledge that all our lives unfold in complex ways, and we never can presume that any given poor child cannot transcend the conditions that impose obstacles. But these mandarins who love data so much when marshaling it, often dishonestly in their own service, cannot reconcile their flawed understanding of educational failure to the statistical truth that the fundamental issue regarding the achievement gap is that poor children grow up poor. Nor should they ignore the logical deduction. Should they ignore the logical deduction that you cannot meaningfully redress a socioeconomic problem with a solution that attends exclusively and futilely to secondary effects. The nature of the reform agenda before us gives the lie to the altruistic motives claimed by our visitors to their legislation. Its basic gesture is to exclude as politically unviable even the merest of authentic measures that could target the root problem, specifically an overhaul in educational financing that ensures that districts that need more resources to right the material inequity so closely linked to academic inequity get those resources. Instead, I will get to it. Instead, the district garrisoned by the wealthy and powerful for whom this unjust system works just by remain shielded from the impact of any real change whatsoever. The privileged in this most privileged of states, including those who work at high levels in education and government, are further enriched, further entrenched in power by the proposals before us. Poor districts get consultants and professional developers who earn indecent sums of money for their negligible service, money that should find its way directly to classrooms. They get reconstituted or disempowered boards of education, once democratically elected, whose authority is now usurped by wealthy outsiders who harbor no humane investment in the local school systems of these distressed communities, but do see in them with their calculating eyes an opportunity for profit where now exists service for public good. And these districts get illusory school choice, which tends to isolate a fortunate subgroup of students for perhaps greater opportunity, but in the process relegates many others to schools with further concentrated poverty, further concentrated social problems, and even slighter opportunity for success. All this so politicians and educational bureaucrats can posture that they care, can further their careers on the basis of empty rhetoric and unsound policy that insidiously prevents genuine reform. Reform once meant the refiguring of institutions that unfairly sustain privilege, so that these institutions instead extend real hope to the underprivileged. Because this so-called reform agenda performs the exact opposite function, anyone who advocates for it on the basis that they care for disadvantaged children ought to blush with the shame of a damned lie. Yes. My question is this. Why aren't the primary authors of this reform agenda the only true experts on this topic, namely classroom teachers?
Thank you.
You know, I listened to that, and everybody in this room is entitled to an opinion. One of the takeaways that I have about that is that ultimately children's destiny is not and should not in this society, where we have always felt that hard work would be rewarded regardless of your race, your religion, or your wealth would be rewarded. And I'm not blaming teachers or Board of Education members. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. And I'm certainly not going to do what somebody else just did, and that is to blame poor children. Poverty is not an excuse to tolerate a system that fails, listen,
Sir?
So let me just say this, that to suggest that someone being born in poverty and that their failures somehow have to be ordained by that is something...
Mr. Drury,
Right.
will you let you speak? Will you please let the governor speak, sir?
So, yeah,
We let you speak, sir. Would you please let the governor speak? Thank you, Mr. Drury.
And then to ignore that under this proposal, $39.5 million out of a total of $50 under difficult circumstances are actually going to the 30 lowest performing districts. That would actually bring $760,000 to this system, the system that you were talking about. To purposefully ignore that that's part of this package, along with additional early childhood education slots, along with money to improve teacher education. So we're going to work on that.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jeanette Picard.